Hi, friends, and welcome back to my series where I review my tournament games. Um, Last tournament game batch I have here, although I am playing one this Saturday. So, for those of you looking for more beginner content, that will be coming soon. I'm in quad one today, and my first game I'm playing with the white pieces against Austin, who is around 1820 USCF. I am around 1850 USCF. Think I'm a bit underrated. It's my series going for at least 2000 USCF. So I play C4, Austin plays E5, I play G3, knight 6, bishop G2, knight C6, knight C3, bishop E7. Both of us are just developing pieces here. Bishop E7, a little tame, maybe bishop C5, a little bit more active, points at the king. Knight F3, castles, castles, and D5. One of my best games I've ever won has come in this position. So I'm pretty familiar with how I like to play this setup. Maybe I'll review that game one day. I took on D5, black took back, and I played D3. I know the engine usually doesn't like D3. You can see the chess.com engine giving it a mistake. It kind of looks like the Sicilian dragon, but as white. And things can get kind of, boring after D4 is why I like D3, even though it's not the computer's best move. And typically, my idea here is to try to play for the C5 square with my knight. Black plays bishop E6. I play bishop D2, just like bishop E7. A little lame here. Sometimes this bishop will come to E3. H6, A3. I would like to play B4, B5, dislodge this knight from defending the E5 pawn. So he plays A5 to stop that. I play rook C1, putting it on the half open file. He takes, which surprised me. It's usually what they say is you do not want to be voluntarily removing a piece from the center. So probably not the best trade for black. Pretty much have to take back the bishop. Taking with the C pawn would be interesting if it didn't drop my A pawn, and then I would have to deal with this A pawn coming pretty quick. So I take with the C pawn, putting pressure on E5. He plays bishop F6, and very quickly I realized that this knight is not ideally placed. Something that intermediate players, beginner players struggle with is, okay, I've got all my pieces developed. What now? Well, they usually say you got to improve your pieces. So this square or the knight here, this piece is defended twice, can't really attack it anymore. So I very quickly realized that maneuvering it to E4, where it attacks the bishop, tries to get into C5, is a good plan. And the computer agrees. It is, I believe, the engine's top move, knight D2. He plays queen D7. I played knight E4, hitting the dark squared bishop. He plays bishop E7 and play bishop D2. Even though I cannot do this tactic right now, if I just give black any bishop takes, pawn takes, knight f6. If this bishop didn't exist, forking the king and queen. It's always good to be aware of tactics that could be available in the position. I'm moving the knight out of the way so that my knight can jump into c5. I'm just trying to win one of the bishops. That is the achievement I'm trying to have as white. I'm trying to secure the bishop pair, considered a strategic advantage. And, if black blunders with something like bishop d6, it's nice to know you can nab a pawn here because this would lose your queen. So always being aware of tactics is key as a strong chess player. He plays bishop h3, trading away my best piece. I play knight c5, and he elects to trade the bishop for the knight. Engine thinks I'm a little bit worse here after taking back, but I didn't feel that way, and I don't think my opponent did either. I have, potentially a minority attack brewing here, a 2 versus 3. I have pretty easy play. I have targets to try to have here. It's worth noting that if black tries something like queen c8, I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I probably have something like bishop takes, queen takes, and then knight takes b7. And I think I'm escaping back with the knight. And so that's why he does go ahead and trade the bishop for the knight. I take with the rook. He trades my light squared bishop, and he plays queen e6. Don't fully know what his plan is here. Probably just to stop my queen going from b3. Maybe he wants to go to queen a2 to tickle me. And here I calculated for quite a while. I had a pretty strong time advantage at this point. We are playing game 45, or actually game 60, I think, today. I can't remember. It's one of the two. And I played queen a4. And of course, before playing queen a4, I did have some other candidate moves to consider. I considered f4, just trying to get my pieces going here, and attack the king side. I considered b4, with the idea that I'm trying to play b5. I'm trying to win the c pawn. I'm trying to win the e pawn. What I don't like about this plan is I don't think it's good for me to allow black's rook to develop and infiltrate my position. So that's why I decided to play queen a4. And of course, I had to calculate what's happening after knight d4. Primarily, I have to be aware of this check to my king. So something like rook takes, rook takes b7, queen d5, what's happening there. And I did decide to nab the c pawn, and I thought I was winning 2 pawns for 1. Because black takes on e2, and I took on b7. I wasn't sure if I should play queen e4, knight d4, rook takes b7, but I didn't really like that black could play f5 and perhaps just attack my king. I don't know where my queen is going. Now I'm losing the rook. And so that's why I decided to take the b pawn, and black pretty much just has to retreat with the knight, because otherwise queen e4 will hit the knight. And that's what he does. And I originally intended here to play a move like queen d7, trying to trade queens. I'm up a pawn. I have the bishop versus the knight, considered a small advantage for myself. But what I didn't like about queen d7 is after a move like queen g6, it's really hard to hold on to my d pawn. And so that's why I decided to play queen c4, where, and the moves I have to be aware of are queen g4, queen f6, queen f5, all of these moves trying to get into the f3 square where the queen can attack my rook and my king. If I get lazy here and I allow this queen to check me here and I play something like king g1, then knight e2 would be checkmate. So just being aware of ideas like this. After queen f5, I play f4, which of course before playing f4, I had to know what was going on after the very natural move rook c8, simply attacking my queen. And what I calculated was takes, 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 and then no checks to be worried about from the knight winning my bishop or anything. This would be a winning position up 2 pawns. I also had to calculate take, 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 and then again, no checks to worry about to my king. And then the last thing I had to worry about was what if they just take on e5? And I didn't give this move as much consideration, but I did think I was okay even if this occurred. If I don't play f4, stopping the queen from seeing the f3 square, or if I do play f4, rook c8, and I don't go for taking on e5, something like, I don't know, queen a6 just doesn't seem correct, where I just feel like black's going to get in here and potentially I'm going to be losing in it. And I felt like I'm dictating the action. I'm the one with the big time advantage. So I'm trying to win this game, as I'm trying to win most games. So I do take on e5 and he takes on e5. And again, I have to kind of figure out what's going on. What I would have loved to play is rook takes f7, rook takes c4. And then if this queen was not defending g7, something like rook g7, king h8, rook h7, king here, and rook here would have been checkmate. But of course, if I go for this line, black will just win a rook by sacrificing his queen for 2 rooks. I'm also looking at what happens if queen takes f7. What happens if I just move the queen? And I eventually settle on rook takes f7 like this. And the point is, after you take my queen, I take your rook with check, king h7, and I take with the c pawn. And so after the dust settles, I'm up 2 pawns. I have 2 rooks versus the queen, and I have the bishop. And basically, the deal here is when you have the 2 rooks versus the queen, as long as your king can find safety, it's considered winning. So, like, if I can avoid all the checks and then slowly push these pawns, I'm going to win. Now, this king is not safe, right? There's a lot of airy holes for it, so I don't think I should be able to find safety here. Black should probably be able to draw this game. So he plays queen e4. I play king g1. He plays queen d3. Took on a5. I wanted to play something like bishop c3, applying pressure to g7, but I decided I might be like losing at times if I leave this a pawn, so I might as well grab it now. I didn't see a reason not to. And he plays queen e3. And then I thought about playing rook f2 like this, trying to be tricky, hoping that he blunders with queen e1, forgetting that the bishop goes backward. But of course, queen c1, king g2, queen takes c4, just loses my c pawn. And so I played rook here. And I knew this was a draw because I knew I had calculated that black could play knight e2, taking advantage of the pin. The rook is pinned to the king. King g2, queen e4. And then if I play something like rook f3, black can retreat with the knight, put pressure on the pin piece, and, whatever move I play here, you can take, and I just don't think I ever find shelter with the king, where black can probably just check me forever, start winning some pawns. And I'm not losing, but it is a draw. Now, my opponent was below 1 minute. And so instead of doing that, they played knight c6. And I realized that this is just losing because I'm able to shut this knight out of the game pretty easily with bishop c3. Defend my bishop, apply pressure to f7. Knight d8 is played. I play rook e1, getting my rooks undoubled. Queen b6 is played, and I play rook e7, applying pressure to the g-pawn. My opponent plays knight e6, defending the pawn, and I play c5. And my opponent flags in this position. Part of the reason to play fast, part of the reason to know the opening. He had tried to play queen c6, where I believe I'm winning after rook f5. The point being I can play rook e5. I'm not sure if I would have found that, but the point of c6, c5 is, if you're wondering why you can't take this, is if the knight takes, I take with check. You have to play a move like king h8, and then I can play something like rook b7, discovering a check and winning the queen. And if you take with the knight, the same thing happens. Something like this. And if you take with the queen, I don't know if I showed that line, I can just take your knight. So I won my first game, and that means I'm on to game 2. Again, a quad, you only play 3 games. This position, I'm playing with the black pieces against a girl by the name of Adele. She had drawn the top guy in the quad, Lyubo, around 2100. She's only mid 1700, so an impressive result from her in round 1. d4, knight f6, the king's Indian, c4, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, g3, castles, bishop g2, d6, castles. This is all theory, getting our pieces out. Knight d7 by me. I could play knight c6, but against d5, I think I just go back to here. So I like to play knight bd7 here, knight c3, e5, d5, a5. The point being that, if I just give white a move, I would like to drop my knight into c5, and I don't want b4 to be able to kick my knight away. So they play e4, I play knight c5, and she plays knight e1. I play knight e8. Oftentimes in the king's Indian, the plan for black is to play f5, moves like h6, g5, f4, pawn storming the king, trying to checkmate him. And white is usually going for plans like a3, b4, trying to expand on the queen side, not get checkmated, and then they'll win the game. But they can, of course, play on the king side as well. So she plays knight d3, challenging my knight. I go forward with f5, and she takes on c5. And this is the engine's top move, but something I've picked up from top players is that it's often considered a strategic mistake to take on c5 because it gives my knight access to the d6 square, where it's just very powerful, and it blockades your center, and it attacks your c pawn and d pawn. She played f4, and again, like, I'm the one trying to play on the king side, so probably not her best plan. I drop my knight into d6, and she takes on e5. And spent quite a bit of time calculating here because bishop takes e5. I'm pretty comfortable that I am not worse, probably even better. Um, but I was really trying to make knight takes c4 work, and then something like e6, maybe taking, and trying to play something like c6, trying to undermine white center. But I didn't like that, there are going to be lines here where the bishop checks my king, wins my knight, and I could just get in a lot of trouble. So after a while, I settle on just taking on e5. She plays queen e2, and I play b6 with the plan of trying to bring my bishop to a6 to attack the c pawn. And you can't play b3 because my bishop sees your knight. She plays bishop h6, and my choices are rook f7 or rook e8. I decided on rook e8, lining the rook up with the queen, because if you do something like taking on f5, I would take the knight and discover an attack on your queen, so you can't take back my bishop. And she plays king h1 because she's worried about bishop d4 check hitting the board. I play bishop a6 here. She plays knight b5. And I take on e4 with the knight, and I'm pretty confident I'm just better now. If you take like this, I take back, and you can't take this pawn. I mean, you can, but if you do, something like bishop takes b2, again, the rook discovers an attack on the queen. It also attacks your rook, would win material for me. So she plays queen f2, threatening queen f7, and I play queen d7, and then she plays rook e1, not really realizing my threats. I think she needed to play a move like a4 here so that if I trade, she can take with the b pawn. But she played rook. If I go back, she played rook ae1, and I simply take on b5 because the point is, if you take back, I take the d pawn. I'm up a bunch of pawns now. My queen is lined up with your king. My queen also guards the f7 square. You're just losing a lot of material. And I have, a lot of pawns here. So she plays b3, which, of course, I know I'm just winning now. I'm up a clean piece. I just have to avoid not getting checkmated, primarily on the f8 square, which I play bishop d4, and she plays queen f4. Again, I'm happy if she takes this because I take her d pawn. And I play bishop a6, and I think what she should have tried here is she should have tried rook takes e4, because I originally had intended to do rook takes e4, which loses the game because queen f8, rook takes f8, and rook f8 checkmates me like this. And so I think she should have just played this quickly. Hope I blundered. Of course, she's losing. Rook takes e4 doesn't work if I play correctly, but she instead played king g2, and I simply pushed my e-pawn. Now you can't even sack it, or I'm going to take. I'm going to push this pawn down the board. She plays h4. I play e2, and the rook pretty much has to go to f3, not really a square it wants to go to. And now I just play bishop g7, just saying, let's trade. Let's get rid of these back rank issues here. I'm up a clean piece, and then I'll win the game. And so I take with the queen, not wanting to take with the king and allowing anything like queen f6 to occur. And she plays queen g4. I play bishop c8, hitting the queen, getting the bishop back into the game. She plays queen g5. I play bishop f5, threatening bishop e4, forking or pinning the rook to the king. She plays king h2. I play rook e4, stopping any g4 nonsense, threatening rook g4 perhaps. She plays h5, and I just play h6, kicking the queen away, giving my king some lift if I ever do encounter back rank issues. She drops the queen to d2. I get my last piece in the game with rook a e8, and she plays d6. She's just desperate, trying to create some counterplay. I calmly play rook d4, hitting the queen. She plays d7, hoping that I take, and she promotes with check. And I just take the d pawn because I know I'm going to be able to play rook d1 next turn and win White's rook, if not get a queen. She plays queen f4. I play rook d1. She takes on g6, again creating some tricks here where I could get back rank mated in some lines. But I just take on g6 with the bishop. She sacks her rook for the pawn. Really nothing to do. She doesn't really have any way to defend that rook. If she moves the rook, I'm going to promote, and she's going to sacrifice the rook anyways. I take with check. She plays king h3, and I mean, she's very low on time. I have a lot of time, but I'm winning, and I think I'm checkmating here. I'm debating between rook h1 and queen d7. I thought queen d7 checkmated because queen g4, rook h1, rooks attack here and here, and like this. I also thought rook h1 probably mated, which it does with something like king g4, bishop d3, queen g5, check, blocking check, and then taking the queen. Um, but what I didn't see is I played queen d7 and she just plays g4. Now, of course, she's a high schooler, so a lot of opponents would have resigned by now. I don't mind at all when someone plays on. I think it's fine. But I'm a little perturbed that I didn't find the most accurate continuation. So I play rook h1. She plays king g3. I just trade the queens. I'm up a lot of material. Let's just trade the queens. I don't need to checkmate. I just need to win this game. She takes. I take with the d pawn. And she plays rook f6. And now I want to be accurate. I want to find how to end this game the quickest. So I play rook g1. She plays king h3. And I play rook e3 check, king h2, and rook d1. The point being, if you take on g6 with check, I can play something like king f7. And if you move your rook, let's say h6, well, now I have rook d2, king h1, rook e1, the monkey bar checkmate. And so she does not do that. She plays rook f2. I play bishop e4, threatening rook h1 checkmate. She plays rook g2. I take her rook. I check her like this. And then something like this occurs where I do end up monkey bar checkmating her in the end. So I am 2-0 going into the last game against Lyubo, who we've seen a lot of games against Lyubo on this channel. He is usually the top rated player in the club, and I'm often the second highest rated player, and he's 2100 and I'm like 1850. So I do think I'm quite underrated. I do think I'm closer to like 2000 strength, and I think he's a little underrated too. Some weird things occur when you repeatedly play the same people. Um, and strange enough, like over our 10 or so games, I've played white maybe 3 times and black like maybe 8. He plays d4, knight f6, c4, g6, and h4. So last time we looked at this, and I did review this line with an engine after he played this against me last time. Not deeply, openings is definitely not a super strong strength of mine. Why is he playing offbeat lines? Well, because if you guys saw the Gulf Coast Open game, I should have beaten him with black, so he doesn't like playing that line against me. So he's reverted to trying to play h4. And the engine's top move is c5, d5, and then I'm gonna be honest, past here I didn't remember what to do, but I did remember that like b5 is roughly the idea. Trying to get this Benoni where you're trying to weaken the d pawn. And so I play b5, he takes, I play a6, hoping that he takes and I can develop pieces. He plays e3. I played d6, knight c3, bishop g7, a4, bishop b7, hitting the d-pawn, knight f3, castles, rook a3. Not a move I understood really at all. I mean, it does defend the rook so that if this file opens, he doesn't lose his rook, but I think it's just too slow. And so I play e6, trying to just get something going in the center, trying to attack him. He plays bishop c4, and now I exchange on b5 because you kind of have to take like this. I take his rook, and it may look scary with these pawns coming this way, but I'm going to win his d pawn. And then I have, after all these trades, queen a5, winning back one of my pawns. And again, white's not castled, and they might not be able to castle. He plays knight d2, and I take on b5, with my idea being if you take on d6, which he did, I can play knight c6, finishing my development. I'm going to play rook d8, and I'm going to, I'm looking at lines like even knight d4, trying to check you. Um, and I knew he could play this move a4, just trying to dislodge my defense of both these pieces, like taking like this. You could take here, um, something like this. You could take my knight. And so that's why I played queen b6. Now, I kind of wish I'd calculated a little bit longer, a little bit deeper here, because it turns out after queen a6, if you do take my c pawn, after rook c8, you're just losing. Um, an example of how it could go is queen c2 and knight d4, where I am threatening checkmate and I'm hitting your queen. If you take here, I would take your queen, maybe something like queen d1, and then I can take your bishop on c1, winning your queen at least, and if you take the rook, checkmating you. Um, and so that was definitely a missed opportunity. I was pretty happy here. Like I did think I'm better. Like despite being down a pawn, I thought that this c pawn is just going to be quick. It's quickly going to go to c3, and this piece isn't really playing yet. Your king isn't castled. These guys aren't developed yet. So I thought I was better despite being down a pawn, and I'm going to try to win the a pawn and push the c pawn. So I was feeling pretty good out of the opening. Played knight c6, a4, queen b6, castles, rook d8, a5, again, trying to distract my queen from defending everything. Queen b5, queen c7, and I elected to go for bishop e5, forcing queen b6 and rook b8, trading things. Kind of wish I didn't because, okay, yeah, this queen's here, but I think I'm going to be able to harass it, win this pawn, and there's really no need to trade the queens where, again, I like these pieces aren't really playing yet. Um, and so oh, well, I played here, and what I thought was gonna happen is I thought I was gonna win this pawn. Now we're tied. I have a passed C pawn, though, and if anyone's better, it's me. Like, this pawn is weak, but I also think it might be going up the board. He plays knight c4, and I play bishop c3, and I was feeling really good here because this bishop can't really get in the game, I thought. I'm gonna win this a-pawn. He plays a6. I play rook b4, kicking the knight, and then I'm going to play rook a4 and win the a-pawn. But he plays bishop a3, kind of shocking me. I didn't think this move could be played. I take on c4, and the point is he plays rook c1. And I'm not going to lie, at this point, like I'm pretty exhausted. It's unfortunate because Lyubo had drawn his past two games against the two people I beat. So clearly he's not having his best day. He's around my age, so he said that he got barely any sleep as well. But yeah, I play knight a7, which is fine, and then bishop b2. And here I calculated for like 20 minutes. And they often say think long, think wrong. My main intuition was to play knight b5. And I mean, in some of these lines, white is getting checkmated. Something like bishop takes, rook a1, knight e2 check. And if you blunder with king h1 or king h2, rook h4 would checkmate you. Um, I also calculated like what happens if I take the pawn, you take here, I go here, you take me, I take like this. What happens if I just go for the a pawn right away? what happens if I play knight b5, bishop takes, uh, knight takes. Okay, now I'm probably losing because of rook a1, I thought, but I guess here I have knight b5 and I can stack my knight back. Would have been fine. And so yeah, I should have played knight b5, but because knight b5, I think the most accurate line is it goes like this: knight takes, bishop to. He had told me actually that he was going to play, I think g3, and the point is if I take, you take like this, and I have two pieces, but I think this pawn is just going to be trouble for me. So here, I think it could have gone like knight b, like what I calculated and then just mixed up along the way was knight b5, bishop takes, or yeah, bishop takes, knight takes. No, what did I calculate? I calculated knight b5, g3, or whatever. And then like against any move, my plan was going to be to play. We'll play g3 because he said he was going to play that. Was going to play rook a4, and the point being bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. I am down a pawn, but this position is like a pretty easy draw to hold. I did something similar in the game where I played rook a4, but this is just objectively worse than just having a rook because this bishop can checkmate me in some lines. And so, again, if I'm able to trade for this knight with pawns on the same sides of the board, I think this is a pretty easy draw to hold too. It's a little bit harder than just having rooks. But he plays rook d5. I play rook c8. He plays bishop d4. I play knight c6. And he plays rook c5. And what I need to do here is just chill. Like just play king f8, get my king in the game. You can never double attack this knight on the light squares. And eventually I can trade either piece and probably hold a draw. But again, I'm kind of tired at this point. I didn't calculate, which is just lazy, right? Like if I get a draw here, I'm going to gain 60 points. If I win, I'm going to gain like 100 points because I'll go 3-0. If I lose, I'll gain 20. So still a good tournament, but I played 97, and then after knight takes, he has this move bishop c5, and the issue is my knight can just never get into the game, and if I trade the knight for the bishop, now it's losing. Often being down a pawn is just losing like this, so yeah, I'm just in big trouble. We play a bunch of moves. I try my best here, but I'm just lost because he can bring his king back and I resign here. So pretty bummer where I thought I outplayed him some in the opening where I just have this like really dynamic, fun position with the C pawn. Like even here, I think just playing C4, playing C3 would have been a good idea. Like allowing him to castle, playing c3, and then just being like, okay, what's going on here? Like, I'm gonna get this knight in the game. I'm gonna get the rook behind the passed pawn. Where's your knight going? And you might be like this pawn is quickly getting to c2 and giving you issues. Um, so I think that would have been a good idea. I think realizing how strong queen a6 is, just preventing castling and putting the rook on c8 would have been nice, but is what it is. And then, yeah, like I just, just inexcusable in this position here. Once we get this position that is just like pretty. Oh, last line I calculated here, by the way, I meant to mention is bishop takes, winning two pieces for the rook, which is often considered good. But the issue is after something like bishop a3, I can play rook c3 and then bishop b4, rook d3, cutting my king off, and you're just going to be able to win my knight at least with this passed a pawn. And so I calculated that this is losing. I wanted to make it work, but it just doesn't. So yeah, just pretty inexcusable not to play knight b5 here. I think you know takes, uh takes, takes. Again, this a draw, or takes here, a draw. Like, there's so pretty easy draw to hold, honestly, and yeah, I just made it way too hard on myself, so disappointing is what it is, but that catches us up to my, current tournament history. I will be playing more and going over those games. A good tournament, after having a bad tournament, I've bounced back somewhat. This is my where I'm back up to 1864 after I had one bad tournament, and then it took me two good, not great tournaments, and I just need to have one great tournament where I go 3-0 or 4-0, and then that 1864 will jump to like 1964. So it may seem like I'm pretty far from 2000, but really not, because I'm continuously close. Again, he was rated 2100, and I'm just better at points being in 1864. So is what it is. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. All that helps me grow. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Appreciate you. Goodbye and happy Halloween.